Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your virtual tour. On this special occasion, we will be exploring one of the most beautiful and historic natural spaces Baltimore has to offer, the Cylburn Arboretum. We'll be discussing the Arboretum's educational value, its natural value, and what you can find when you visit. So stay in your seats, and let's begin our tour. Located off Greenspring Avenue in Baltimore and spanning an impressive 207 acres, the Cylburn Arboretum has a rich history. Dating back to Civil War era, the tract of land was first purchased in 1863 by Jesse Tyson, who inherited his fortune from the family mining business, an ironic beginning to an arboretum. Tyson named the estate Cylburn, burn from a Scottish word meaning branch, and Cyl from an English word for stream. Thus, the meaning of Cylburn loosely translates to wooded stream. Upon the land, he built a mansion and planted vast gardens, which were surrounded by native woodland, wildflowers, and birds. Edith Tyson, his wife, was an avid gardener and took special pride in the natural splendor of the estate. Thus began a long history of stewardship on the Cylburn property. Some of the original woody species planted on the grounds can even be found today. The property would go on to be purchased by the city of Baltimore and become a home for abandoned children before eventually becoming a park. In 1954, Baltimore finally declared the land the Cylburn Wildflower Preserve and Garden Center, where the public could explore the city's ecology and horticulture. It was officially designated an architectural and historical preservation site in 1971 and was renamed the Cylburn Arboretum in 1982. Throughout its journey, the Cylburn Arboretum has long been a place of environmental stewardship and careful maintenance of the land. This legacy has now expanded in the modern era, and the Arboretum has dedicated its mission to providing citizens with free access to nature, educating the public on the local flora and fauna, and to encouraging both new and old generations to care about conservation. When you first arrive at the Arboretum, you are greeted by the Vollmer Visitor Center, complete with composting toilets, a green roof, and geothermal heating and cooling. As you drive through the designated parking area, you will find your way to the greenhouses and greenhouse classrooms, which are used as educational and event spaces. Students can take a variety of field trips, attend nature walks, and even sign up for summer camp, where they learn about the habitats in the park and environmental science. Past the greenhouses and behind the Vollmer Center are a series of trailheads and are paths to reach formal gardens and the Cylburn Mansion. Maps are also provided of the Arboretum collections, gardens, and where to find exceptional tree species. These trails, collections of trees, and gardens are what make up the natural value of Cylburn Arboretum. Now let's take a closer look at some of the best flora the Arboretum has to offer in the gardens. There are the north, west, east, and south groups of gardens. Located just off the path between the greenhouses and the Cylburn Mansion are the West Gardens, known individually as the Three Sisters Garden and the Julie Smith Garden. There are also the Modry Woods, which are small remnant forest patches where the first chief horticulturist ran tree nurseries. Here in the Three Sisters Garden, visitors can be dazzled by the Japanese Oryxa, bugloss, sweet woodruff, sapphire berry, and more. In the Julie Smith Garden, wanderers can see the red dragon Japanese maple, Harlan's boxwood, a Japanese raisin tree, a Japanese plum yew, and more beautiful vegetation. Then we have the North and South Gardens, which are located behind and in front of the Cylburn Mansion, respectively. The North Gardens are home to small fenced-in patches inspired by Baltimore row houses and an area called the Shady Garden that boasts species such as the Chinese dogwood and eastern redbud. The first garden in the south section that visitors see is the Mansion Circle. There is a swath of perennial plants and flowers and a small lawn, planted in homage to a black walnut tree which used to stand there. Buxus sempervirens, which goes by its common name boxwood, Salvia verticillata, also known as lilac sage, and Imperida cylindrica, otherwise known as Japanese bloodgrass, can all be found there. Just across from the Mansion Circle are the other south gardens. They include the Larrabee, Worthley, and Nathan's Gardens. Enter the Larrabee Garden to find gorgeous Virginia bluebells, blue flowering bugloss, lady and red lady ferns with some of their fronds still curled, and an enormous towering bald cypress tree. Venture into the Worthley Garden for a nice place to sit, surrounded by cacti, birds hopping from shrub to shrub, lamb's ears, blooming allium, and more. And finally, check out Nathan's Gardens, where there is a scenic gazebo where you can sit and admire the Lenten roses and a towering dawn redwood. The final gardens are the East Gardens, tucked up against the side of the Cylburn mansion. They contain the Probst Garden, cypress trees, and walls covered in climbing geraniums. Moving on from the gardens, the Arboretum has a host of enthralling tree species, which they call their collections. It is an arboretum after all. The collections are scattered across the property with groupings such as beech trees, Japanese maples, and special individual trees like the ginkgo tree. Visitors are encouraged to look for these trees while walking through the lawns or on the trails. Finally, to complete our tour, Cylburn has an excellent network of these trails. Guests can choose their difficulty level and take a calming stroll through some of the best greenery and native forests on the edges of the land. There are also biking trails for those interested, and pet owners are free to bring their leashed dogs for a walk. These trails in the property are hotspots for native wildlife and popular amongst bird watchers. And that will conclude the tour portion of our time together. While I've tried to capture the beauty of the Cylburn Arboretum in this virtual tour, I highly recommend visiting in person. Experiencing the public estate is not only personally fulfilling, but key to our environmental future. We know that access to nature is correlated to positive impacts on physical and mental health, but it also encourages people to feel a connection with our planet. People of all ages, but especially children, develop a personal sense of responsibility towards conservation and environmental stewardship when they immerse themselves in the natural world. Through their education programs and open green spaces where people are free to picnic with their family, the Cylburn Arboretum is fulfilling a conservation service by engaging the community. In the words of Katrina Mayer, "Time spent amongst trees is never wasted time."